A few weeks back, I made a video talking about how useful bows are to essentially any build in the game. You're able to pull out even an unupgraded weapon and reap the rewards of element damage, CC, and of course status build-up that's extremely powerful in a lot of situations. And of course you can do it from range without much effort. That's pretty useful, so I talked about it. From that video we had a lot of interest about, can you do an only bow build? A playstyle focused on just using a bow, or at very least it's your main weapon. Can you do that in Elden Ring? Is it viable? And what's the best way to make a bow build work? Well, welcome back to Rage Gaming, my name is Holo, and today we're going to talk about exactly that. Getting straight into it. Can you main a bow in Elden Ring and defeat every boss? Yes, of course you can. And really, it's never really been better with the addition of Ashes of War and the new movesets, alongside a new variety of both bows with unique effects, and importantly, a variety of element and status options via your arrows. However, I would view this as a challenge run rather than say the best way to play. It is very fun, and there's plenty of times where, wow, it does work really well. But early game, you're naturally going to be more limited with your options and your ammo. Late game, the bows for some reason don't really improve properly with their scaling. So yeah, it has its highs and lows, but it is a very fun challenge to take up. Using your variety of status and element options, you can use the weaknesses of your enemy against them for good results. Which bow should you use then? Well, I've got two main suggestions, but one I think wins overall. While I believe the black bow is a great pick due to it being a long bow that has good damage compared to a short bow, yet uniquely is able to function as if it is a short bow, using the Barrage Ash of War. That means it's a mobile bow, able to put out many hits quickly, which is great for status build-up. In my opinion, that makes it the top pick for a bow to swap to get element or status benefits, and then swap off quickly. For dedicated bow maining, I recommend the pulley bow. This interesting bow has multiple great benefits. It comes with the passive perk of increased range, which you normally need the arrow's reach talisman to get. Its default Ash of War, the mighty shot, lets you charge up your next shot at the cost of some FP, increasing the damage of that shot by a respectable amount. As a bow, it is your best option for physical damage out of the longbows, compared to, say, a great bow that maybe can deal more damage, yes, but it's obviously way more mobile than a great bow and more reliable in more situations. To get the pulley bow, you'll need to head to Mount Gilmere in the Altus Plateau region, and along the road of Iniquity, there is a ladder that will lead up a whole level in the mountain. On that higher level then, there's a siege tower on your left that you can climb up, and it has the bow literally on a corpse at the top of that. Now once again, bows scale very poorly. Even at a +10, this is a D scaling strength and D dex scaler, so we'll have to find another way to increase its damage. To increase the damage of this bow then, we're going to need to make use of talismans. Right now my base AR is 435 using the stats I've got right now. Let's start by equipping an obvious one. Shard of Alexander. This greatly boosts the attack power of your skills, your Ashes of War. So, because a lot of the damage, when possible, is coming from your Ash of War Mighty Shot, well, increasing the damage of that Mighty Shot is a good idea. To get the Shard of Alexander, you just need to complete Alexander, the NPC, the plot NPC's storyline. At the end, once you fight him and defeat him, he will give you his shard, and there you go. Next, we have a super obvious and important one. We have Arrow Sting, the talisman. This literally raises the attack power of your arrows and bolts, and that is exactly what we need in a build like this. This essential talisman to a bow build comes from the impassable Great Bridge Grace. There is a tower just next to this grace. You climb up that and you can loot the talisman from that tower. It is just west of the Redmane Castle, or the southern point of Caelid. Even though it is increasing the power of our arrows, it does not increase our AR, which is really irritating because, you know, I want to see the numbers I'm supposed to be doing, but do know that it is increasing the power of your damage. What else can we do to increase our raw damage? Well, we can put on the Blue Dancer Charm. This raises attack power with lower equipment load. When you're using a bow, it's quite light and not too heavy on your equipment load, so this works perfectly. That is why I'm wearing just these traveler boots. It technically would be better for me to be completely naked, but I don't know, man, I just like wearing like the single pants. That brings my AR up from 435 to 474. To get that talisman, you'll need to come here to the High Road Cave, which is the northern point of the Limgrave region. Literally following the sort of river that leads down to Agheel Lake. You can make your way up there or jump from the bridge of St. Bridge. There's actually a spring you can drop down without taking fall damage. But either way, once you go in the cave, you need to defeat the final boss of that cave, and then you'll get your talisman. Lastly, we have one more talisman that can increase the damage we're doing. That is the Ritual Sword Talisman, which will raise our attack power when we are full health. Now, because I am a very squishy build, I'm basically going to die in like 2 or 3 hits to most things. So I want to maintain full health. Therefore, I actually see the benefit of this buff pretty much always. That brings our AR from 474 to 519. Another respectable boost. To get that talisman, you'll need to go to the Lux Ruins, which are very near the beginning of the Altus Plateau, just north of the lift itself. At the Lux Ruins, then, you'll just need to go in and then head through. There'll be a staircase towards the back. We go down there. There is a boss, and after you defeat that boss, you will find a room with a chest, which has the talisman in it. You'll also notice that I have Flame Grant Me Strength on. For me, as long as I'm using the bow as my only source of damage, then that works for this type of build. So I can use self buffs like Flame Grant Me Strength, which is going to increase my AR even more. We're now up to 623. That is really helpful in any situation where I'm fighting an enemy. What are the benefits of the bow, though? What is strong about this? Well, I think the fact that it's super long range and you can ambush or catch out enemies from super far away where they can't even really retaliate is a huge benefit. Something I really recommend you try, even if you're not running a bow-only build. Just having a bow and being able to do that is super useful. And if you didn't know, you can actually headshot most enemies in the game, if they have a head to shoot at least. And that increases the damage you'll deal. So you can get an ambush headshot and get some extra damage, or even in mid-combat, you just auto-target the head and maybe during a jumping shot, you'll land a headshot and get some extra damage. But my advice when you're running a bow is essentially spam your Ash of War as much as possible in the case of Mighty Shot with the pulley bow. It increases your damage significantly, so it is well worth using, and it also means you can fire from super far away with an auto-lock shot. As you'll see me do in basically most combat scenarios though, the jump attack is your reliable friend. You can do it while moving right, you're jumping and moving. Your lower half actually has iframes, so as long as they don't hit your upper body or arms, you'll iframe for attacks. And it gives you poise, so if you do get hit, you'll still send out the attack, which is super important when you're dealing with a boss that is right up on you. In most cases, that's all boss fights. Now we better talk about ammo, because it's kind of important. As you can see, I have so many different types of ammo, and I'm using these very intentionally to get the best benefit possible. The Red Wolf of Radagon in the Academy, that is actually very resistant to all types of elements, and I guess that makes sense. It's a magical wolf. Its biggest weakness is actually slash damage. We don't have that. But its second biggest weakness is physical in general, so using your basic arrows is actually going to be your best option, and that's why I'm using it. The thing is though, yeah, there's a lot of different weaknesses in this game. Being aware of what is weak to what really helps. For example, we have fire damage. It is generally a great element to use against many enemies, but in some cases, like dogs, or of course the really annoying giant hands, they're super weak to it, where it does loads of damage and it hardcore CCs them for a few seconds. So yes, fire against certain enemies, obviously a great idea. You can see how I use poison and rot against one of the later bosses here when we're on our way to Lindell to double up on damage over time. So I rot up this boss, and then I poison him, and then I kind of just watch as his health burns. Sure, I keep attacking him, but at a certain point, I can just stop because he is dead. As long as I don't die, he is dying to the damage over time. So where you can double up on damage over time with rot and poison, that is a great idea too. A great example of using your elements against what you're fighting is using golden arrows. These are your faith or holy damage type arrows, and you can use these against undead or those that live in death to get bonus damage, like crazy bonus damage, and take skeletons or undead enemies. When you kill them with this, they die. You know, they normally revive unless you get that final hit on them. They straight up disintegrate when you use this holy damage against them. So, using holy arrows, wherever relevant, is another good idea. Sleep arrows are another amazing option for CCing enemies. There's so many scenarios, especially with a bow-only build, where you're dealing with multiple targets and it's a problem. Using sleep arrows, you can CC a target target, like the Godskin duo fight, so you only have to fight one at a time, which makes the fight way more manageable. And like in the case of many giants, if you sleep them, they fall down and give you a free critical. Not too relevant when we're not using a melee weapon, but you could swap to a dagger if you're allowing that to take critical damage. And finally, bleed arrows. Being able to range bleed enemies is an absolute gift. It is so effective against any enemy that can be bled, especially those with huge health pools. This is basically required ammo for dealing with the red giant in the Mountains of the Giants region. There's also arrow crafting. I'm going to very briefly mention this and explain it. You have default arrows and then you have feather or fletched arrows. The difference between them is slightly more damage, and they even fly through the air quicker. So if you can, it's always worth it to make fletched over regular arrows. To get yourself beast bones, you have to kill any animal around the world. Small or thin ones, they come from small animals. Big ones, the hefty beast bones, well, they come from bigger beasts, like big bears. You can actually kill the bell-bearing hunter boss that shows up in the Warmaster Shack at night in Limgrave. Get the Bone Peddler bell-bearing and bring that to the Twin Husks in the Round Table. And from there, you can actually buy thin and hefty beast bones or animal bones infinitely from those. Let's go through my resources for each ammo type. Calais here is the first merchant you're going to find in the game at the Church of Ely, right in front of the first step. And he is wonderful because he literally sells you infinite basic physical arrows. These are extremely important, super reliable. You use them for the whole playthrough. For fire arrows, you're going to need to come to Caelid, but thankfully it's not deep into Caelid. You have the Heart of Aeonia here, or on the northwestern point. We have this nomadic merchant right next to the Astray from Caelid Highway North Grace. He will sell you infinite fire arrows. Wonderful. For poison arrows, we have another infinite resource. It's wonderful. The isolated merchant at the northern point of Caelid, also very near the entrance, like the Rockview balcony where you first come in, is right here. This isolated merchant sells infinite serpent arrows, nearly 80 poison build up there on these. These are incredible. On the other hand, and kind of the stronger hand actually, is rock compared to poison. Sadly, I don't have a really good reliable source for you on this except for crafting. Now, crafting your rock bow and arrows requires Aeonian butterfly, which can be found in the Swamp of Aeonia. You can also find them in areas of the Helig tree and some other places, and you run around pick them up. Apparently they don't infinitely respawn though, which makes it a bit awkward. You can make quite a lot out of the few you have, but I actually recommend if you're getting them early and want to have a nice like stock quickly, I'd come here to the abandoned cave. This is just east of the Smouldering Wall, Grace, and you run to the edge of this ravine and make your way down the routes where I'm standing, just crossing and dropping down from that cliff, and then you come into the cave. Throughout all of this cave is a load of butterflies you can pick up. It is only one-time pickup, but it's a great place to get started. And then you can make yourself some rockbone arrows using those butterflies to get you going. When it comes to sleep arrows, fortunately, you don't actually need a lot of them. You end up shooting maybe 3 or 4, and then you get the sleep effect. So you're only going to need like 100 to last you a long while in most cases. So I recommend in any case, you come here to the main academy gate. This is the first grace you get once you go through the Ryle the Carrier gate to approach the academy for the first time and actually go through this area. Now, instead of going in and going up the elevator, you're actually going to turn left and go beyond this barrier. You can walk past them and then just go down this long bridge and road until we reach the merchant. Here he is. And he's lovely because he doesn't just sell you the thing you need to craft them, which is the cookbook number 2, but he also sells you 20 St. Trina arrows, which are the biggest sleep build-up you can find in the game, as a great way to get you started with 20 sleep arrows and then crafting a few. And that should be honestly a reliable stock to run for quite a while. When it comes to your golden arrows, the holy damage arrows, fortunately, this is an easy one and a really reliable one. This merchant here, the hermit merchant, will sell you those golden arrows infinitely. And he is found here at the Hermit Merchant Shack Grace, which is in the northern eastern area of Altus Plateau. Basically, from the first Grace, when you go up the lift, you're going to follow the main road, working your way up and up and up, and he will be right next to the outer war battleground Grace, just above you. Last but not least then, the all-important bleed arrows. You're going to want an infinite resource for this because it's extremely important to be able to bleed enemies in this game. I make use of this in many scenarios, right? And we're using the blood bone arrow arrows to do so. That's thin beast bones, which isn't a problem, but then blood rose, which could be a problem. Thankfully, there's a way to get infinite very early in the game. We're here at the East Limgrave, super straightforward from the very beginning of the game, and the Grace is just outside on the west side. There are multiple bushes in this area, leading to you to get blood rose about 5 a run, and they're respawning. So you pick them up and then reset at the Grace and run it again, and you have an infinite source of blood rose, literally super early in the game. You're also going to need to be able to craft them though, right? You're going to need to craft these arrows. Fortunately, the source of that crafting recipe is also right here. Just beyond this courtyard is this small room. And in this small room, on the body on your right, this body right here, is the nomadic cookbook needed to craft yourself blood arrows. But there you have it. The main things I think you need to know to run your very own bow-only build. If you have any extra tips for other bow mains out there, it'd be great if you drop that in a comment. But personally, I found it quite fun to experiment with this. All of this was done during a New Game Plus run, but I do actually think I'm going to create a new character and start from the top, from the very beginning, as a personal challenge to try. If this video was useful or interesting, then please drop a like to support the channel. But for now, I've been Hollow and you've been you. Thanks for watching.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.